So while I don't remember all the details, I do remember that it was very special. Wearing sundresses with spaghetti straps, we headed downtown. We checked into the hotel at the Detroit Renaissance Center. There was a little swim in the pool, picnic food for dinner, but the real highlight was watching the fireworks from the balcony overlooking the Detroit River. It was festive and celebratory and impressively close to the boom and sparkle of it all. 4th of July celebrations of my childhood equaled time with family and friends, swimming and cookouts adorned with red, white, and blue decorations, and were an indicator that the carefree days of summer were in full force. While over the years, the holiday's core meaning of freedom ebbed and flowed in my own consciousness, I think the first time that I spoke openly about freedom in connection to the holiday was on July 1st, 2005. The Shabbat that led up to Independence Day. Jeff and I had just returned from a glorious vacation in the Canadian Rockies. That was pre-kids. During our trip, there was news that marriage equality was to become legal in Canada just days after we arrived home. Canada would be the 4th country to legalize same-sex marriage. This development was in stark contrast to the then proposed amendment to the Texas state constitution to ban same-sex marriage and same-sex civil union. Fast forward to this year. In the past weeks, I found myself shaking my head when listening to the news. How could it be possible that LGBTQ rights are under attack again and are saved by a narrow decision in our country's highest court? How could it be possible that a woman's right to choose is under attack again and saved by a narrow decision in our court? How could it be possible that Black and brown-skinned people are still being lynched in the cities and towns of our country? Hadn't we done this work? Hadn't the courts ruled? Why does it seem that the threat of going backwards is upon us? That there could be fewer rights, less freedom for some or all Americans even possible? Only in very recent days has it occurred to me, perhaps as a result of my own learning, my own deep dive into the topic of racial equality, that we are not done and we will never be done. Emerging from my sadness, fear, and disbelief is the crystal clear realization that freedom is dynamic and not linear. Like our relationships, our bodies, and our minds, if we are not working on it, nurturing it, and cultivating it, not only will it cease to grow or remain strong, it will deteriorate. Nothing stays static. When we stop training and doing the work to maintain and grow the musculature of freedom, our freedom becomes weaker, less dependable, brittle, and can break. Illustrations of the struggle for freedom can be found here in our weekly Torah portion, Chukat. We read that Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom, asking for permission for the newly freed ancient Israelites to cross through his country. The messenger assures the king that the people will not pass through fields or vineyards, they will not drink water from their wells, that they will stay on the highway until they cross through his territory. The request is denied. The messenger persists that they will pay Edom should the cattle or people drink their water, insisting the people just wanted to pass on foot. And again, the ancient Israels are denied and turned away. Torah is clear. The path to freedom, the path to a promised land is long and dynamic, arduous, and full of adversity. Later in this same portion, Israel sends messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, requesting permission to pass through their land. Again, promising not to turn off into their fields or vineyards, not to drink from their wells. And again, they are denied their request. And this time they come under attack in the wilderness. Our text reaffirms the path to freedom, to the promised land, is long and hard, full of adversity and even battle. Time and again, in our sacred text and in our own lives and our experiences, steps towards freedom are difficult and rarely come undisputed. It is an inherent part of our origin story. It's in our kishkas to push forward, to go around when we must, to fight when we must, and to continue journeying towards freedom. We must continue walking that path today and in the days ahead, staying informed and voting in local and national elections, giving tzedakah to organizations that are working to ensure our continued freedom and promote greater freedom for people who are in minority groups and those most vulnerable, speaking out about injustices, big and small. I close with words that I shared from that sermon that I referenced 15 years ago, that I adjusted for today as we prepare for the 4th of July. As we begin this holiday weekend where we celebrate our birthday, the birthday of this country, we need to ask the question of how we are doing. On a day that typically finds people gathered at picnics and cookouts and watching fireworks light up the sky, a time when more people can be found donning red, white, and blue than any other day, we must question, are we continuing to make this land that we love and this democracy that we are so committed to, that so many are fighting and dying for, a continued priority? On a day when we usually see parades make their way down main streets and uniformed heroes salute and stand tall, are we making sure that they have the care and support that they and their families need? While we are helping to free people across the world from tyrannical rule, poverty, and oppression, are we doing everything we can to support and care for the basic freedoms of our own country's inhabitants, regardless of sex, color, religion, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation? The voice of the prophet Isaiah rings out. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness and have taken hold of thy hand and kept thee and set thee for a covenant of the people, for a light unto the nations. It is our sacred obligation to continue to be that light unto the nations, even when it seems difficult and unpopular, perhaps especially in those times. May our lamp burn long and bright as we fulfill this ideal of spreading God's goodness and the blessing of freedom to all. Shabbat Shalom.